home. So the situation is, albeit not one of any stretch of the imagination, normality. Things are starting for the time being to get back to normal for people who are on holiday there. Actually, that it's not the whole island, and I have seen some reporting that makes out the sort of the whole of Rhodes is threatened. It's interesting that within the last few minutes, the Greek civil protection organisation that basically do the fire alerts, they've put out their stuff for tomorrow. They say that the island of Rhodes will be downgraded from level 5, the maximum risk of fire, down to level 3. So a big gap there, and a big jump downwards. Crete, that's also on 5, is going to drop to 4 tomorrow. So there is a downgrading. The temperatures in the country from Thursday as well are predicted to drop by 6 to 8 degrees. So that will be welcome news. Now, in terms of flights, yes, today what we've seen, a few more repatriation flights, but more using existing capacity. Those are people that were meant to go home today who have already left on the earlier flights that have freed up spaces on scheduled planes. So Jet2, the UK's biggest holiday company, says now, as things stand, of its 1,000 displaced tourists, all of those who are still on the island are in accommodation. Those who wanted to go home are now home. So the situation is, albeit not one of any stretch of the imagination, normality. Things are starting for the time being to get back to normal for people who are on holiday there.
No, significant point, Ben. And you can, on the evidence that you have, and from all you've heard, you can give reassurance that those still travelling to the islands now, they will not be flying into any kind of trouble.
Yeah, so what particularly people who are on package holidays, it's worth reiterating that doesn't necessarily mean what people think of a package holiday out of Benidorm or so on. It's where any 2 items of a holiday are sold in a single transaction, most commonly a flight and a hotel. Those people have the most protection, and by and large, all the major tour operators that I've heard from and spoken to have said that we will not be flying anyone out to any hotels that are in the immediately affected area. Most have said that departures until the end of this week and through the weekend are cancelled. Those people that are going out on their own scheduled flights, could be a different situation depending on the due diligence you've done. But what I would say is don't write it off immediately. And I think certainly the words that I've been hearing today, and my colleagues in Rhodes and in Greece in general today have been hearing from the locals, is don't write off the whole summer. Yes, some hotels will not reopen this season, but many will. And actually, they only have 6 months of the year to make their income. They rely so heavily on tourism. So please don't just say now on the 25th of July, well, my holiday on the 15th of August is going to be awful, so I'll ring my tour operator and ask to change now. It's far too early for that.
Now, Ben, as I mentioned a moment ago, there are some members of Parliament calling on the government to issue not travel bans, but warnings against travel, just do not travel warnings. The government is not doing that. They have said so far, take advice from your provider, from your tour operator, and so on. Those calls for the government to step in and say don't travel, are they now redundant? Is there any need or case for those?
Well, it was interesting today, the Liberal Democrats sort of conflating Foreign Office advice with talking about red lists, which was what the government used during the pandemic. We do not have red lists of countries now. We have the Foreign Office advice that advises against travel, all but essential, or all travel to different parts of the world. There was potentially an argument earlier in the week that they could have localised that advice a little bit more and given some holiday makers, those particularly that have made their own arrangements, that the area in the sort of centre southern band of Rhodes where the worst fires were, they could have said avoid all but essential travel there. It would have helped some people with insurance. But I think unless anything dramatic changes overnight, it would now be a very draconian measure for the government to say, actually, don't go to Rhodes. It would particularly when there are incidents elsewhere in the Mediterranean with fires as well.